Good morning, Marty Martinez.
Good morning.
We'll give folks a minute to join on this June 30th, many of our ends of our fiscal year. I'm sure people are working busily to finish out the fiscal year. And speaking of that, the state of Massachusetts, our House and Senate, today is the budget deadline and the budget is out. They put the budget out last night. Marissa has gone through it. I'm sure other folks have. Fiscal year 26 starts on July 1st, which is tomorrow. So we know both the House and Senate are having sessions today where they'll vote on it, but they put it out yesterday. So we'll put a link in chat so you can go to that. And then Marissa's coming in now. And then we'll work to get an email out so folks know what happened in the budget. And then the governor has 10 days to sign, do vetoes. So we'll be following that as well, that part of the process. But so that this is the first time, I think, in 15 years, the budget has been out on June 30th, by June 30th.
Okay.
So we'll see. If folks have any questions or anything they want us to especially look for, Marissa, I know you joined us, so I don't know if you wanted to share anything in chat about the budget. So, as folks saw for this week, we have today, tomorrow, and Wednesday, and then strategies will be closed for Thursday, Friday. We know a lot of vacation messages, so we know that people are off also out this week. So Marty, welcome to the 9:30 call. I think when you got this new role, I messaged you in a meeting immediately to get you booked to come here. But Marty, our first question, and you and I have known each other for a long time. So our first question is for you to tell us a little about you and how you came to be in your current role and tell a lot of the story. This is one of our favorite questions on the call. We always learn something, and a way to connect to folks. So Marty, I'll turn things over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. It's great to see you, and it's great to be with everyone. And I think you underplayed the historical nature of an on-time budget a little bit, which is exciting and shocking at the same time. But it's great. So good morning, everyone. Again, I'm Marty Martinez. I'm the Ansin President and CEO of the United Way of Massachusetts Bay, and I am actually officially 3 months in to my role. Excited to be sitting in this role, overseeing the work that we do here at the United Way, which cuts across Eastern Massachusetts. I have found myself here. I am really a combination of a public health, government, nonprofit guy, all kind of merged into one. And really found myself in this role. Most recently, I was running an early education national organization. I was running Reach Out and Read's national office. Many of you know Reach Out and Read obviously was founded in Boston 35 years ago, but I was running the national office. And while I was running Reach Out and Read nationally, I was doing some legwork with trying to expand our work in Florida. And Florida can be a challenging place to do a lot of different pieces of work, but work that we care about is vitally important. And in some conversations I was having about the work in Florida, I was talking to a local official, local staff. We were talking with a local community provider, having deep conversations about children in a certain community. And I realized in that conversation that we were having, I knew nothing about that community. I knew nothing about the specifics to the children in that place. And although I love Reach Out and Read and the amazing work that they do and continue to do as well as here, it was a call for me to come back to my Boston work and the work that has been my career for about 27 years, 26, 27 years. I think in those first years is when I first met you, Amy, but been here for a while working in public health, community health, and sort of advancing the work for communities, including working in local government, overseeing the City of Boston's COVID response as the Chief of Health and Human Services. But you know what? I live in Dorchester. We fund a program that's probably less than 2 blocks from my house. And it's a very local work for me, and that has been the driver for me and what's connected me to wanting to be here, especially in these challenging times, to be fair. It's even more important for me to think about the local piece. The other piece I'll just add to it for me that is connected. My son just finished first grade. And so it all connects the dots local me that what happens on my street, in my schools, in my community is sort of driven with me all the time. And that's why I'm grateful to having be in this role, even if this is some challenging times, to be working at the intersection of nonprofits, government, businesses, and sort of community. And I'm grateful to be here, but again, some challenging times today and moving forward. So that's a little bit of how I got here, Amy. I hope that gives you a little bit of info about me.
What was it school that brought you to Boston? Was it
Grad school. Yeah,
Tufts?
it was
Okay.
grad school. It was Tufts. Yeah.
And then I think, Marty, your experience both inside and outside government, right? I think as advocates, we call ourselves critical friends of government because we want government to succeed. We
Yeah.
really believe in working inside and outside, in front of and behind the scenes. We really want decision makers to have the information that they need to make good decisions, especially for children and families.
Yeah.
So, can you talk a little bit about, because I think to be the chief of health and human services during COVID in the city of Boston, working with Mayor Walsh. Can you talk a little bit about, I mean, how do you prepare for a job like that? And then what did
Mhm.
you learn along the way about being inside government that you would hope that advocates know outside of government?
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, I think for me, to take it one step back from that exact place, the reason that I was the chief of health and human services, and very specifically, Mayor Walsh, Marty Walsh said to me, he met me when he was the state rep. He was a state rep representing Dorchester. I was running mass mentoring, trying to develop and grow youth development and youth mentoring programs across the state. And I kept coming to him saying, kids in Dorchester need this. Young people in Dorchester schools need this. We got to do this. You guys got to do more. You got to do more. And one of the things he said to me when he asked me if I would take on this roles, he's like, you knocked on my door a lot when I was at the State House. I'd like you to come in and bring that experience into government with me at City Hall. And so again, I think it's a direct link, right? Advocates and those of us who run organizations and work in community, oftentimes we have the pulse into not only the providers but families and communities that we're serving, and we've got to bring that voice to government, right? So when I was the chief of health and human services, my first 2 years very different than my second.
Okay.
First 2 years were pre-COVID, and then COVID happened, and everything seemed to revolve around it. I will say the lessons that I really learned is that government and nonprofits, having worked in both, I'll say this to everyone on this call. Government and nonprofits are not known to be nimble. They're not known to move with urgency, as much as I love both sectors and I've worked in both. But during COVID, we saw that we could do that. We saw that we could move urgently. We could move in, use nimble ways to sort of adjust and figure out how to move based on data, based on, so intentionality. And so I learned that a lot during COVID. Things I couldn't do at the city. Working for the mayor, there were things I could not do for children and families pre-COVID because there was all these restrictions and regulations.
Right.
Post-COVID, I was able to break them all apart. I was able to do that because they were emergencies, right? So I think the biggest lesson for me and what I would bring back for advocates as well is lifting up the urgency of the work, lifting out how important those pieces might be, and then how do we collaborate and partner together? Because that showed me a lot about what did we need to do for our most vulnerable was really partner with our advocates and figure out how to move urgently and use every muscle that we knew we needed to use in that moment. So that was a lesson learned through the city that I've brought to my role at Reach Out and Read, but also to my job at United Way.
Last week, I was able to be part of the discussion that was on Thursday, No Small Feat, which was the Children's Trust, the
Yeah.
Children's League, kind of, as Jen Venezuela said, scrappily gathered people together. And one of the things our table said was that we were at our best during COVID, which is ironic. This call was created in COVID.
Right.
March 2020 we started. We're still going 5 years later, and part of it is it's the call, but it's the community that was created. And to your point about bringing kind of, we bring elected officials here, we do the first year tour here, but that lesson of you kind of being an advocate, going to Marty as a state rep, and then just thinking about what that looks like as he invited you into the administration, as he thought about kind of building his team. So, Marty, tell us about what your work now at the United Way. So you've been in 3 months. We had Bob Giannino when he took over the role join us on the call. And in full disclosure, the United Way is one of our funders, which we're so grateful for. But tell us about the work that you're doing.
Yeah, so the work of the United Way, and we're excited to obviously partner with strategies and all of you. I think, the work we're doing is really about trying to tackle economic inequity across the regions that we serve. And it's really about, ensuring that we can not only use all of our strategies to tackle economic inequity, but that we can do that in partnership, in community, and doing, everything we can to think systemically, not just programmatically, right? And I think for the United Way, historically, we're celebrating our 90th birthday this year, so we're turning 90. And one of the things for a longstanding organization is we've been through a lot of iterations of who we're doing, who we're supporting, and how we're doing it. Right. And so right now, and we're very focused on this, and this was a pivot the organization made prior to my arrival, but the mission is what drew me back to this role. It's just really tackling systemic inequities that are creating, economic inequity, but lack of economic opportunity for families across our regions. So we do that by focusing on sort of four primary areas, and you all know them very well. Economic inclusion and wealth building. How do we make sure we're advancing economic opportunities across race, ethnicity, across our communities so that everyone has an opportunity to prosper? Pathways for young adults. Opening pathways for young adults who are disconnected from either education or workforce opportunities, really focusing on safe and stable housing, doing a lot of work to create opportunities to combat homelessness, and to lift up supportive housing as one of those strategies. And then, of course, early education and out of school time, a variety of strategies tied to ensuring that the youngest of us all have opportunities and their families have access to those opportunities across a variety of ways. And then crisis response, because I don't want to lose track of the fact that as much as we're thinking systemically, the United Way is built to mobilize quickly. We're built to mobilize community, donors, government leaders, corporate partners, and nonprofits to be able to do important work and to be able to make that happen. And so for us, last year alone, we put out about $38 million out into our region, into the community, across organizations, across our New Way Forward grantees, across these priority areas. But while we give out and invest money, we also mobilize government officials. We have a policy agenda. We mobilize business leaders. We create opportunities for folks in community to get involved and connect and collaborate. So the work of the United Way, I think, is a longstanding organization trying to pivot to the needs that exist today. And I will say, and I can't without have this call without mentioning it. We have pivoted to our federal response work. We are hosting a call every other Friday at this point, bringing on leaders. Many of you are probably on that as well, where we are raising the bar of trying to understand difference between fact and fiction, how we can mobilize our resources, support our partners, and to try to generate the resources necessary to do that. So we've launched a new fund to increase and raise revenue to support our partners, and we're continuing to think about how do we not only support the work we're doing now, but how do we prepare for what's after, right? We will get through this as a nonprofit sector. And so we have to be prepared for what comes next. We can't simply just be in crisis in this moment. And so for us, that's really what the United Way is built for. We're built to be able to mobilize resources and do that across our impact areas. And that's really what we're trying to do today, and do that with that, again, that sense of urgency and being as nimble as we can be. So that's the work of the United Way. You know as well, I always say this, some folks have heard me say this. We are not my mother's United Way, right? Our grandmother's United Way. My mother piece of personal. My mother was a mobilizer and a community activist, and she was rough and tumble. And so she'd be highly offended by me calling something my mother's something in a negative way. But what I mean by that is that we are continuing to evolve, continuing to generate who we are and what we're trying to do, and make sure we can have the impact we need to have.
And what are you hearing from folks that you're working? So as you said, with the United Way sits in this really interesting place with business, grantees, and folks really working kind of directly with community. So what are you hearing from folks?
Yeah, I mean, we're really hearing. I mean, I've gone out in the 3 months I've been here. I've gone out and visited the mayors, most of the mayors of the cities and towns that we focus on, the 12, many of the direct providers and partners. And we're hearing directly people's, trying to figure out how to I'd say do more with less, but to be honest with you, some of it's doing the same with less, right?
Right,
I
that's
mean,
right.
we've heard folks trying to figure out how they're going to downsize, how they're going to scale back, what the federal budget could look like. And obviously, we're on the edge of the state budget coming out. Maybe some highlights there, but I will say when I sat recently where Senator Spilka spoke, and Senator Spilka talked about the budget we have today, and knowing that it's not the budget we will probably have tomorrow,
Right.
right? And so that's hard for providers. Providers are telling us every day, like, I've got to figure out how to navigate this now. I've got to figure out what this contingency looks like. And I need to figure out how not to lose all the progress we've made. But I mean, one thing I will say, and I'm sure everyone here has experienced this as well, is almost every provider, especially our early childhood providers, have talked a lot about it to us, about the fear that their families feel. Right? That
Right.
the fear that their immigrant families feel, the fear that, even connecting providers with services and referrals, like people being afraid, well, is that a safe place to go? Is that a safe organization to be connected to? And so while organizations are trying to narrow and organizations are trying to do those pieces, I think it's so important that we don't lose track of what families are feeling and what community is feeling, because those two things might not always be perfectly aligned for what we're trying to make happen each and every day. So, I mean, to be honest with you, that's what we're hearing from our partners across the board. I will share one piece that we're also hearing that people may be interested in hearing. We're also talking to philanthropy a lot. We're talking to funders. We're having lots of conversation and coming to tables as a member of philanthropy. And we're hearing philanthropy, to be totally fair, unsure of what to do now, unsure of how much to do and how much not to do and what they can and cannot do. And I'm going to be clear, we don't have all the answers. We are absolutely trying to figure it out as we go. But we've made a decision to try to lean in right now. And we've made a decision, let's try to raise more money. Let's try to do more. Let's try to figure out the best way we can support partners, even in the face of economic challenges. And I will say, just a note to that, I think funders need to continue to hear from the nonprofits that they support, not just like, here's the gaps and we need more money, but whatever they're going to do and however they're going to do it, it's important to act now, even without all the questions having answers, even without all the information. It's really important that philanthropy try to figure out some steps to continue to move forward. We have a lot of unanswered questions about what's to come. But in that philanthropy role, we're going to continue to figure out to do as much as we can do while trying to be fiscally sound, financially healthy, and all the stuff that all of you know is important. So I say that as a lesson because I think philanthropy is having those conversations, and I understand exactly where they're at because we're in a similar boat. But I do think them hearing I'm sure you guys have heard this phrase a lot. Like, philanthropy will never plug the holes that government's creating. Of course, we all know that. Like, that's the start of the conversation. That is shaping where we go. That can't be the like. So we can't do more right now. That can't really be the point we lean towards. So I just wanted to share that piece because since we sit at the unique spot with philanthropy and nonprofits, we are having conversations across our entire environment.
I appreciate that. There's lots of appreciating the chat, and I'd ask the 9:30 callers to please continue to add love and 9:30 call love and appreciation in the chat for Marty because I think it's to be a leader in government, to be a leader of a big organization like the United Way right now. We know that folks save the chat, hold on to the chat as they can feel the love and appreciation as you're doing this work. There is a question in the chat. Can you share what connections you and other United Ways in Massachusetts are collaborating on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I will say, one of the connections we're collaborating on right now, is working with state government. I mean, state government has reached out to us to try to figure out might we play, a valuable role in thinking about resources, supporting immigrant families, supporting providers, and just trying to figure out how the right kind of supports might be there to create opportunities, right? I think you all know the United Way with the Boston Foundation created the Migrant Relief Fund, raised a bunch of money to be able to support new immigrants into the community. So there's some thinking and conversations that we are having right now with the state around how do we think about that again with immigrant families, and how do we think about that again for partners and providers. The other area with state government that's sort of come into us, I'll just say, is that we've heard our state leaders say to us, both publicly in our Friday calls, but also privately, nonprofits are going to have to help us prioritize what comes next. And I think it's important that we do that. We're going to pull together some small cohorts of organizations to ask folks to help us do that. Not only we as United Way of Mass Bay, but to partner with the rest of our United Ways across the state. Not everything's going to be able to be supported when the federal budget ends where the federal budget ends. So the state will need to make some decisions. And I think all of us need to have a loud collective voice about what those decisions will be. I think that's going to be an important piece of it. The last thing I'll say is, I'm a couple days away right after the 4th from going to DC because we still believe there's federal advocacy to be done. We'll see how the federal budget sort of plays itself out. But we are working at the United Way worldwide level with our United Way national colleagues as they're doing legwork in more purple, red state kind of places, right? That is the advocacy that needs to happen, right? As much as I want to hear, and saw Senator Warren give a passionate in her car on the way to, if you didn't see it on TikTok or I think it was with Twitter, on her car on the way to the Capitol to sort of push the bill, the timing of the bill. As much as I love that, we know that the power is in the hands of those in more purple and red places. And so we're working with our United Way Worldwide colleagues across the country to advocate around those buckets, because that's a really important element of what we're trying to tackle as well. So we're collaborating across those ways on the federal response piece. And then the only thing I'll say to that collaboration piece is we don't want our progress to stop, right? We've made a lot of progress in these buckets in these areas. We're doing a bunch of work around community schools to try to strengthen community schools across Massachusetts. We have a statewide coalition. We're pressing that forward. So while we are not going to not try to respond federally and not and we are going to lean in. We're going to continue to focus on the stuff where we have made progress and continue to move that work forward as we're looking for new communities to expand community schools and new ways to support that, whole school, whole community approach that we think is vital for children and families. So at the same time, while we're doing the federal stuff, we're not going to lose sight of the work that we continue to move forward. Like many of you, we know no other way but to keep working. And that's how we're going to continue to approach it.
And thanks for the tee up because tomorrow we'll have Danielle Ewan, who's been our federal expert on the 9:30 call. She's joining us at the call tomorrow. We know that the Senate has been working, U.S. Senate has been working over the weekend. So Danielle was trying to figure out the best day to come on the call. So we'll see kind of where we are tomorrow. And she'll be joining us there. Lots of love and appreciation in the chat. Alex Chu says the early childhood agenda is a great start for what the United Way could think about focusing on. I'd love to think about not recreating the wheel and learning about all the work this group did to set priorities. So we kind of hosted the early childhood agenda. There were 10 priorities. So there was a lot of actions about that. Edna Cabral shares Marty after our Friday call. I shared a message with the Woburn Residents Immigrant WhatsApp group to let them know that there were organizations advocating for their rights and that they are not alone. The response was filled with love and appreciation. Thank you. Please extend my thanks to Jay Ash as well for the encouragement and motivation. And so, I mean, as at the 9:30 call here, we take any of these calls as a form of flattery for us. You guys been doing it 5 months. Tell us as you've come on, it's been, it's been a little bit of a different focus, right? You definitely have had more structural leaders come on. But what has that been like? People often ask us like about preparing for that. How do you kind of choose the guests and the format?
Yeah, no, obviously we learned a lot from what you all have been doing, Amy, which has been great. And I think it helps to understand, the moment that we're in and how you navigate it. I think for us, we're really focused on the prior to my arrival, the team was really focused on like raising awareness, getting information out there,
Right.
because that's what everyone was asking us for. And now, one of the things that I've been working with the team on is we're moving from that awareness building to action. So we are going to, for example, we're going to bring on, I think in the next 2 weeks, we're bringing on some folks from Ropes and Gray to focus on what does it mean for organizations to downscale, to think about partnerships, to think about, I know it's scary, to think about mergers and collaborations and to think about those things. Again, my first interaction with United Way was as a funded agency. I've been a nonprofit, a small nonprofit
Right.
BD, so I get it. But we also, again, families and communities need us to think, long term, right? And so we're bringing someone on. Why? We had a lot of agency EDs call us and say, I likely am going from a 10 million to a 4 million. I need to figure
Nope.
out what to do and I need
Yeah,
some support to do it, right?
that's right.
So we're moving from awareness building to action, right? And figuring out what's the best way to do that. And those calls have helped us do that. In addition, we've used ideas that have come from the calls to help us think about what we will fund through the United Response Fund. Right. I mean,
Yep.
as we've shaped the fund, one of the things we've shaped in this first round of the fund, what'll come out is really going to be focused on like systems level support, not individual agency support, but
Yep.
systems level. We took $50,000 and threw it into a system right now based on the federal response. What would we do? Some of that has been coming from those calls and what we've learned, which is why it's been really, really valuable. So that's some of what we've done, but obviously you guys, made the mold, and in helping people sort of figure out how to navigate it.
I think too, at no small feat, somebody had the idea, Kim Quinlan, about after the budget is final to come together to say
Yeah,
like, okay, this is what the state budget is. We also, are always wondering about will there be mid-year cuts? So like, how do you have conversations like
right,
that are productive and like, you do this well, why don't you keep doing that? I'll do this well, we keep doing that. One of our mantras at Strategies for Children has been amplify, don't duplicate, which is really hard in this competitive environment when everyone's looking for funding. I will also double down. The funders were incredible and are incredible, but during COVID, the kind of like can-do attitude that everybody was
right.
bringing to the table and like almost like the non-compete that we all have to figure out what we do well and kind of double down on that.
That's right.
Marty, any other wise words from you? It's been so great to learn about you. We so appreciate your leadership at the United Way, and I think really positioning the United Way as a place not just for grantees, but to think about how you're impacting the system at large.
Yeah. Just, I would leave it with like, for us, we want to be in partnership. We want to roll up our sleeves and do the work with you all. We are uniquely suited because of what we do, because we invest and we also, partner deeply with many of you to do the legwork you do. So thank you for your leadership and what you all do each and every day. But please look to us as one of those partners that can support your work and support you in partnership. And don't hesitate to pull us into something that you think, hey, the United Way should be more involved in this because we're eager, open. And as the new guy, I'm eager to make sure that we're doing what we need to do on behalf of the community. So just thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you for joining us and to the team at the United Way. We know there's always someone from the United Way on these calls, and we work so closely with so many folks on the team. Just remember, tomorrow we'll have Danielle Ewan. Please tell other folks to join us because I think it's about getting accurate information about what's happening in Congress and what we can do about it. So we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks so much for joining us and have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Thanks, Marty.